Two women, two countries, one movement. They both came from the fringes of European politics. They both rebuilt parties that nobody wanted to touch. They both faced the same accusation. Too extreme, too dangerous, too far right. And they both won anyway. Giorgia Meloni, Marine Le Pen, the two most powerful women on the European right. And here is the question that nobody in Brussels wants to answer. Are they allies or are they rivals? Because the truth, hidden behind the public handshakes and the shared rhetoric, is far more complicated than either side will admit. This is the story of Europe's most dangerous political relationship, and what it reveals about the future of the continent. To understand where they are today, you have to go back to where they started. In 2015, a photograph appeared that would later become one of the most studied images in European political history. Giorgia Meloni, then the leader of a small Italian party that was polling at barely 4%, stood next to Marine Le Pen at a far-right congress in Rome. They were smiling. They were allies. Or so it appeared. But even then, behind the smiles, there was a tension. Because Meloni and Le Pen were not just two women with similar politics. They were two women competing for the same prize, the leadership of the European right. And only one of them could win. For years, Le Pen had that prize. She was the face of European nationalism, the woman who had rebuilt France's National Front, a party tainted by her father's explicit anti-Semitism, into a respectable political force. She had run for the French presidency twice, lost twice, but she had survived. She had grown stronger. And when Meloni won the Italian election in October 2022, when an Italian prime minister was sworn in with actual roots in the post-fascist tradition, Le Pen watched carefully. Because Meloni had done something Le Pen had been trying to do for 20 years. She had made the far right govern. And she had done it without tearing the country apart. The world was watching Italy, and Le Pen was taking notes. Because the so-called Meloni model was everywhere in 2023 and 2024. Analysts in Paris were writing about it. Business circles in France were reading about it. The argument went like this. If Marine Le Pen wins in France, she will do what Meloni did in Italy. She will temper her rhetoric, reassure markets, work with Brussels instead of against it. The far right, in other words, could be domesticated. Meloni had proved it. But here is what those analysts missed. Meloni had not been domesticated. She had been strategic. There is a difference. Meloni had moderated her public language, but she had not moderated her agenda. She had removed the word abortion from a G7 communiqué. She had tried to rewrite Italy's constitution to give the executive branch control over the judiciary. She had pushed Italy toward Trump and away from the European mainstream. These were not the actions of a domesticated politician. These were the actions of someone who understood that power in modern Europe requires patience. You move slowly, you pick your battles, you smile for the cameras, and then you reshape the document when nobody is looking. Le Pen understood this, which is why, in the run-up to the 2024 European Parliament elections, she reached across to Meloni with an offer. Let's unite. Her party, the National Rally, and Meloni's European Conservatives and Reformists could merge their parliamentary groups. Combined, they would be the second largest bloc in the European Parliament, larger than the Socialists, a genuine alternative power centre. Le Pen told the Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera, "We agree on the main things, taking back control." Meloni responded carefully. She said she had no red lines. She had been called unpresentable her whole life, just like Le Pen. But she did not say yes, and she did not say no. Because Meloni had a problem. She was being pulled in two directions at the same moment. Von der Leyen and the European People's Party were courting her. They needed her ECR group to maintain a majority after the elections. And Meloni, ever the strategist, had realised something important. If she merged with Le Pen, she would be locked into the far-right bloc, excluded from the mainstream, unable to negotiate for Raffaele Fitto's position, unable to sit at the table where the real decisions were made. So she chose the table. She abstained on von der Leyen. Her MEPs voted against. But behind the scenes, she was negotiating for Fitto. And Le Pen, watching from Paris, understood exactly what had happened. Meloni had used the alliance offer as leverage, and then she had walked away. Because here is the fundamental tension between these two women. Le Pen needs Meloni more than Meloni needs Le Pen. Le Pen is still fighting to get into power in France. She is facing a court case that could ban her from running for office until 2030. She needs a successful right-wing government in Europe to prove that the far right can govern responsibly. Meloni is already governing. She doesn't need Le Pen's validation. She needs Brussels' tolerance. And those are two very different things. But the story does not end there. Because in 2025, something shifted. A court in France upheld a conviction against Le Pen, embezzlement of EU funds. She was banned from standing for office for 5 years. The woman who had spent 3 decades preparing to be French president was suddenly locked out of the 2027 election. And Meloni, privately, noted something important. Her main rival for the leadership of the European right had just been sidelined. Not by Meloni, by a French court. The irony was almost too much to process. Le Pen, who had spent years building a movement against judicial overreach, had been stopped by a judge. And Meloni, who had spent her first term attacking Italy's judiciary, had just lost a referendum trying to change it. 2 women, the same enemy, and the same lesson. In modern Europe, the courts are the last line of defence against the political right. And the political right has not yet found a way to cross that line without paying for it. So where does this leave the Meloni-Le Pen relationship in 2026? It leaves it exactly where it has always been. Complicated. They share a movement, they share an ideology, they share an enemy, but they do not share power. Because there is only one throne at the top of the European right, and Giorgia Meloni is sitting on it. Le Pen may return. The French courts may be overturned. The 2027 election may produce a new chapter. But for now, the blueprint belongs to Italy. And the woman who wrote it is watching very carefully. Because the next move, from Paris, from Brussels, from Washington, will determine whether the Meloni model survives, or whether it becomes just another chapter in the long story of European politics that almost changed everything. We are watching. Subscribe to The Record Room, because the files on this relationship are still open, and the most important documents have not yet been released. But let's go back to that 2015 photograph, because what happened between then and now tells you everything about how power actually moves in European politics. In 2015, Meloni needed Le Pen. Le Pen was the established name, the international figure, the woman with the movement behind her. Meloni was a footnote. By 2022, the positions had reversed. Meloni was in power. Le Pen was still waiting. By 2024, Meloni was negotiating with von der Leyen, while Le Pen was offering her a partnership. By 2025, Le Pen had been banned from running for office, and Meloni, weakened at home by a referendum defeat, isolated internationally by the Iran war, was the last major right-wing leader still standing in a major European country. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything. Because the European right is watching Italy. Not because Italy is powerful, but because Meloni is still there, still governing, still surviving, still reshaping the language of European politics, one document at a time. And the blueprint she has written, patience, strategy, survival, is the only blueprint the European right has that has ever actually worked. Le Pen tried confrontation. She lost. Meloni tried negotiation. She is still in the game. The lesson is simple. In Europe, the right does not win by storming the gates. It wins by sitting at the table long enough to rewrite the menu. And Giorgia Meloni wrote that lesson. In Italian, in English, in the language of European power. And Marine Le Pen, from whatever position she finds herself in after the courts are done with her, is still reading every word.